I've stated in videos before that I love Animal Crossing New Horizons, and after all, I am a gamer, and what does any gamer do when they love something besides explain how they would do the thing they like better? So, for the nook of it, I want to present my concept for an Animal Crossing game. It's my understanding that Animal Crossing has spanned across islands and woodland villages before, so my idea is pretty different. I imagine taking the characters and constructs to the big city. In my little idea, I call Animal Crossing Concrete Jungle. City folk tackled an urban setting, but that was much more rural than I had in mind. I have something much more unabashedly cement in my head, which I know might sap some of the gardeny charm from Animal Crossing, but it's a little bit my mission to explore how to make the setting really charming and capture a similar spirit to past Animal Crossing games, without directly replicating the settings too closely. Your starting point and main hub is your own hotel, managed by the ageless eldritch horror known only as Tom Nook. He hires you as his new employee, and this is where you'll be living and operating. Similar to New Horizons, you're going to be living your best luxurious life in addition to attracting guests, attention, and business. The idea of this game is to take to the scope of Animal Crossing to a more urban setting, but not to lose the genuine bonds and even naturalistic qualities the previous games brought. The lobby is where you'll find a Tom Nook, functioning more or less like New Horizons resident services. The Nook's cranny would return in the form of the hotel's quaint gift shop. Isabelle will return as well, with the important job of, get ready for this, Isabelle Hop. Isabelle Hop, can you imagine her little red bellhop outfit? Of course, you'll have your own live-in room to decorate with all the best Animal Crossing customization items and touches, and the chance to expand your room at Tom Nook's determination. One of the bigger changes I'd have in mind would come in way of how villagers work, whereas instead of villagers per se, you have guests in your hotel. What I imagine is something like the campsite in New Horizons would be put to use, but utilized significantly more. You'd think this would only be the case in the first place with close to 400 villagers in the game. It feels rather limited to have only 10 and have so little control outside of external trading as to who you get. Your hotel will have a number of guests at a time, more depending on your level of experience and prestige you bring to your hotel by excelling in the game. In their initial state, your hotel guests work kind of like campsite villagers. You can talk to them and get to know them and even perform hotel services and favors for them, such as finding snacks, medicine, accommodating rooms. The sky's the limit. Anything annoying you've wanted in a hotel, they might ask for. The idea of multiple guests giving you a few tasks at a time incentivizes getting to know your guests while keeping you busy. I often find myself wishing in New Horizons that I had more direct tasks to take care of if I run out of my daily chores of sorts, and tying this with the method of picking up longer-term guests feels organic to me. If you spend enough time with them during their stay, they may have such a good impression on your establishment that they'll want to arrange for a long-term stay, becoming adjacent to a permanent villager. The difference in this case being that they can purchase a room for long-term, but not necessarily consecutively. Let me lay it out. Let's say you're like me and your two favorite villagers are Rodney and Agnes, but you're at a point where your hotel vacancy is near capacity. However, Rodney and Agnes can share the same room, living there on different days motivated by their personality. Let's say Rodney has acting classes in town on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, while Agnes has her poetry readings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. This means rather than having to wait 2 weeks to make a change in your villager lineup and kick one out, you have more leeway to customize this aspect of your game, and the revolving schedule nature means you have more room for friends to try out amongst each other and for you. The only hurdle I thought of in this idea was that two villagers sharing a room on different days could potentially mean removing the aspect of villagers' unique houses, one of my favorite bits in New Horizons. When there's only 8 villager personalities, it tells a lot about a villager by the color scheme and unique housewares they keep in their home. That said, I think there's enough room to say Isabelle Hop is good enough at her job that she can switch decorations on a day's notice. The same room can almost magically change depending on who's staying over that day. How you arrange your villagers in their rooms will affect the tasks you have to perform for them. You can bet your cranky villager will be ringing you late at night to ask you to get their peppy neighbor to turn down their music, and that your lazy villager will want a snack at midnight when the cafe is closed. Speaking of the cafe, this is the function of the hotel that would reintroduce Brewster, who has expanded his menu past coffee with your help. The gourmet in me wants to introduce recipes along the lines of the do-it-yourself stuff in New Horizons. I'd love to see an implementation of wider food items you can combine using cookbook entries to bring to Brewster's Cafe, where you find these ingredients maybe in Nook's Cranny, other odd places in the hotel, or within one other element I'll go into in just a sec. Similar to expanding Blather's museum, once you bring Brewster a few complete recipes, he'll open for business. Another hub where you can find guests mingling. Again, you'll be the dutiful servant here, as guests will often post their grievances and suggestions. Figuring out the recipe for a villager's designated favorite dish will be a key part of building a strong rapport. Maybe a jock will want something he can carbo load with, or a sisterly villager might want something high in caffeine to attend to their studies with. They may pass you a recipe card for you to find some of those corresponding items with. As for all new fixtures, I think a hotel arcade would be fun, run by a new character, perhaps a new geeky rat, a la Chuck E. Cheese runs it. And you can collect arcade machines that play older Nintendo games which you, the player, can actually access, like the original Donkey Kong and Ice Climbers. I know this feels a bit removed from usual Animal Crossing fare, but I think it'd add to the hotel atmosphere and add a new collecting aspect to fill the arcade with. Plus, each hotel guest can have a favorite game you can procure for their favor. Animal Crossing is already full of allusions to other Nintendo games, so it wouldn't be out of place. I imagine the hotel would also have garden areas where you can play with flower arrangements, and probably a pool to provide further situations to accommodate your guests in. How long do you expect that smug villager to air dry like some kind of Neanderthal? Find them a towel. Performing tasks promptly will get you tips and gifts. My goal with all of this in mind is to create a setting that's still fun while upping the small tasks you can perform for villagers instead of casually greeting them as consistently as you do in New Horizons. Lastly, Blathers has his museum too. I bet a museum connected to a hotel isn't unheard of, right? And you might be wondering, where do you find fish and bugs for him in a hotel? That brings me to the second part of the game's world, outside the hotel being the park and market. That's right, the hotel is only one aspect, as there's a bustling world out there waiting for your interaction. Think Central Park in New York meets Pike Place Market in Seattle. Out here you can meet up with guests that aren't in their purchased room that day, as well as various vendors with different items for sale, including ingredients for DIY and food recipes. I find the Nook's Cranny a bit stifling in the decoration and shopping aspect, with how limiting their daily stock is in New Horizons. I think by creating multiple vendors and stores that are more consistently present, there would still be necessary limits by designating certain specialties for each one, but one would ultimately have more options. This is also where you can find rare food items depending on the season. Maybe CJ will throw you a fresh gourmet fish, or Daisy May will have just the right fruits for the ambrosia salad your snooty villager has been bugging you about. There will be bugs abound, plus ponds, lakes, and an ocean-connected beach to carry on fishing. I also want this area to be where you build on your relationship with your guests outside of working hours, because I think being exclusively in service to them within the hotel would really chip away at the friendship aspect, and the outdoors can keep the seasonal and natural qualities so consistent to Animal Crossing as well, just with a concrete city-light touch. There's a fine balance with Animal Crossing between jobs to actually perform, which can make you seem like a servant to your villagers, and exclusively soft dialogue exchanges, which makes the game feel perhaps a bit too low stakes at times. I thought a hotel park setting would be perfect to consistently fulfill tasks with a large cast, but also feel like you can build friendships. After all, the end game of a hotel stay is to relax and enjoy oneself, so working to do that is kind of a two birds, one stone kind of deal. I think the balance between work and play is key to Animal Crossing. And the double life between inside and outside the hotel, I imagine being a perfect ratio to strike. Also, for the love of God, let me craft more than one fish bait at once!